tonight on the final score, we talked about this. We started out doing just sports. Now we're getting into kind of the entertainment part of the world, and with me tonight is a guy that, if you guys that get tired of hearing me talk or get tired of hearing me interview people, you can partially blame this guy for it, because he kind of is responsible for getting me started in this kind of work. A few years ago, this guy asked me to be his partner on a wrestling podcast called Brawl for All. It was really a wrestling kind of podcast. We talked, we interviewed guys, had a good time with it, and now this guy has moved on. And to think a Northampton County boy has written a novel. He's wrote a novel now, and this is coming out tomorrow. A New Requiem.
That's right.
With me today is Lance Jenkins. How you doing today, Lance?
Steve, I'm doing great. You're too kind in your introduction. I don't know if I'm responsible for all that, but I appreciate it. And I will tell you though now, you definitely made a name for yourself in the field and are growing. And
well,
I wish you the best, man, because you definitely have a bright future when it comes to this business. But like I said, I don't know about all those good things, but I sure appreciate it.
Well, you just don't want to take the blame for these people that don't like. God knows, here he comes again talking. Yeah, it's Lance's fault. It's Lance's fault.
So, I'd love to take credit. I would love to. I just don't think it's due.
But what's been going on with Mr. Lance Jenkins? I know, me and Lance. Yeah. Lance is a lot younger than me, and I'll go ahead and admit that. Lance is. How old are you now, Lance?
32.
32. So 13 years there. I was a teenager before Lance was born. So when we were doing the wrestling podcast, it was kind of like, when I would talk about this old wrestling I used to watch, Lance was like, I don't know who you're talking about, or I was showing my age, but and before we went on the air, I was telling him some other stuff, and I was like, I can't keep forgetting how much younger you are than me. But have you been keeping up with the wrestling scene?
Yeah, I have. I will tell you, I don't get to watch it as much as I used to. I don't get to watch television in general as much as I used to. But one of the things that, but one of the things, I still love to keep up with it, though. And so after every single Monday Night Raw and after every single SmackDown and NXT, and particularly the, I guess they used to be called pay-per-view events, but the network events, right. I am always watching to see what happened, what's going on. And I can count on one hand how many times I've actually watched a program in the last year or two even. This is the first year in over 2 decades that I have not watched WrestleMania.
Wow.
So I didn't even watch it. But I remember I was out of town, so that's why, otherwise I would have. But, the truth is that I still keep up with it because I love it. I always will do.
Well, it's not having the best product right now, but I'm kind of excited. Come November, AEW comes on TNT, so maybe that's bringing forth a little competition for Vince now. Maybe he'll up his ante a little bit.
I hope so, because let's just be honest, the product was better when they had competition in WWE at the time, WWF, and it was much better then. And but it is what it is, and it seems like every single year people say the exact same thing you just said. The pundits will say that the product is not as good, and it's typically around this time of year. And then it gets a little better at SummerSlam, but then, sometimes it doesn't. And then they move on, and they've tried to levy that here lately, it seems, because, you'll have these shows, in Saudi Arabia that have high-profile names or what have you. They'll develop high-profile storylines a few weeks leading up to it. But it just, to me, seems like it's kind of same old, same old. I agree with you. Probably has a lot to develop, and hopefully they will.
Yeah, I hope it does. So let's get right down to it, what we're here to talk about. So you wrote a book. Now tell me, when did you start writing anyway?
Well, I've been writing a long time, Stevie, just for fun and pleasure. Wrote a lot in college, obviously, but I wrote for fun for many, many years. But I had always kind of wanted to write a novel, but I had never really sat down and said, I'm going to just do it. I'm just going to write this. And in 2015, before we even launched a single episode of this podcast, you and I were talking about,
right.
I said, I'm going to write a novel. And so I started, and I got about 100 pages in that year and just stopped. I didn't like the story that I was writing. I didn't feel passionate about it. And to be honest with you, Stevie, I feel like I was just writing for the sake of writing. Like I'm writing just to achieve the goal of writing a novel. And frankly, if it's not a good story, I don't think people are going to want to read it. And that was just the wrong reason to try to undertake such a big undertaking. But I think that when it finally came to me what story I wanted to write after a few failed attempts, it was probably late 2017 when I developed the concept for what became A New Requiem. And I didn't start even then until May 2018. And I wrote it in 7 months.
Wow.
From May 18 to I guess the end of December, first week of January at the latest. But it was it was tough because I just not what I do full time, and so you can't work on it all day long. And so I would come home and I'd eat dinner and work out, whatever, and get everything done, and get ready the next day. And about 9 o'clock, I'd get started on it, and I did that for 7 months.
Jeez. So, I mean, tell us a little bit about how you talk about this concept of A New Requiem. How did this come about?
Yeah, so I'm surprised that's a question I haven't been asked a lot, actually. That question has not been asked to me in a single interview that I've done so far. How did I come up with the concept? And the reality is that what I want to dispel is that it had anything to do with where I grew up, because it challenges in this novel. I'll give you a summary, if you will.
Right.
So a 17-year-old boy in this book is murdered and raped in a very brutal situation by they don't know who by, but the accused is a gay community chorus director and a teacher in the community. And so the reader knows early on that he didn't do it, but the town immediately turns against him and believes he did it, convicts him, if you will, in the court of public opinion.
Right.
And so the reality is that the reader all along knows that he didn't do it, but this town is so adamant that he did. And it's really not because they necessarily really believe he did or that the evidence is there to support it, but it's because of who he is. Now, it's a small town in this book, and so when people ask me, with a few times people have asked me off the air how I developed the concept, I like to make sure they know that it isn't picking on small towns. It isn't picking on, it just happens to be one in this novel, and it isn't picking on where I'm from. I love where I'm from.
Oh yeah.
That's not all the case, but I do think, I used a small town in this case, but I do think that there's a message in this novel, despite the fact that it's a good, thrilling story. It's got a little romance, it's got a little crime. It's got kind of the elements of all the things we love, right? But but I will say that this novel does have a message, and I don't want people to get too caught up in it. But the message is that we perhaps should we would all get along a little bit better if we be a little more empathetic and understanding towards others. And I'm not saying that you have to accept things that you don't, fundamentally agree with. But I think that even as a Christian, that's how I identify.
Yeah.
As a Christian, I think that we ought to take a look at how we deal with things that we're not used to and aren't accustomed to. And if we would do that, I think that we might be able to get along a little bit better. People might, even be more inclined to hear what we have to say. So I think the message of love, empathy, and understanding is important to me. And I think that's why I was so passionate about this story and getting it done, where I wasn't about the others.
Yeah, it definitely. It seems like the trend this day and time going is if you're different, you have a difference in opinions with somebody, then you automatically have to hate them. And I'm like,
Yes.
If everybody agreed on the same thing, this world would be a boring place. People don't agree with a lot of things I say on my show, or people don't agree with a lot of things I put on my Facebook, and that's fine. I mean, I'm not expecting you to. It would be a boring place, but that's a good. I like that answer. That's pretty good there, boy.
Yeah.
So
thank you. I appreciate that.
So when did it become a reality to you that when did it hit you that, wow, this is going to be it? I've always wanted to write a novel. This is going to be it. When did it hit you?
And I did have that moment because I've heard the folks say they never do, and they think they're going to have that moment. I did have that moment, and it came on very unexpectedly. I was when I started writing in May, I wrote it's a 5-part novel. I write long chapters, so it's 21 chapters. They're all long instead of short ones like some authors tend to lean toward. But I was in part 2. I was finishing up part 2 when in July of 2018, about a year ago, actually, a couple of weeks, I found out that one of the inspirations for one of my characters in this novel had passed away.
Right.
And I will tell you, at that point, I told myself, I'm not going to not finish this. Because I had told him in 2017, his name was Dwight Berry. A lot of people knew Dwight in the northeastern part of the state. Dwight inspired a character in my novel named Dwight Carey. And he's the only character in the novel that I wrote identically to somebody I know. A lot of new authors will tend to write about what they know, and I did, but he is the only character that was really inspired entirely by somebody else. And so I had told him that I was doing this, and when I found out he passed away from lung cancer, I was like, there's no way I'm not finishing this book. And so that was the first moment. It was bound and determined that it was going to happen. But I'd say it was probably November, around Thanksgiving, a little after Thanksgiving time, when I realized, oh my gosh, like A New Requiem is going to be what my dream has been all along. And that moment was pretty exciting. The other moment was pretty emotional. That was pretty, I can't really describe it in words. And I am a man of words.
Right.
But I have a difficult time describing what that felt like, because it was, it's just, I guess it's a feeling anybody has when they fulfill a dream and they start to realize that dream and recognize that it's actually happening. It was a feeling that I can't equate to words.
So what was it like actually putting your hands on a copy of it, the finished product, and then when it came back, what was it like then? I know that had to be like one of those moments that, like, you talk about the moment that you knew this was going to happen, but when you actually see it, that had to be a big thrill for you.
Yep, I remember the first day I printed it off from Microsoft Word and put it in a 3-ring binder, and I thought to myself, wow, this is even cool. I wonder what it's going to feel like to see the actual book. And so then that happened about, I'd say, 2 to 2.5 weeks ago. I guess about that time, I got a copy. I was able to see the paperbacks first, and I was a little disheartened that the paperbacks were coming in first. I knew I couldn't wait till the hardcovers came in to open them both. But then I remember opening that box, and Courtney took a picture of me when I did, and I didn't know she was going to do it, and it really defined everything. I cannot describe it. It was a surreal. I'll try though. It was a surreal feeling. Like anything, I guess, when you accomplish something that is important to you, and you see it. It's just unreal. I'll never forget that moment as long as I live.
Yeah, definitely. When you have a goal, and it's something that obviously that you've had for a long, long time, since you've been writing in college, even before. When you have a goal like that and you fulfill it, and we're able to, not just see it like you said in a 3-ring binder, but to actually see it come in a actual book. I can't imagine. I mean, I'm no writer by any means, but something like that. I can't imagine what kind of feeling that was. But that's pretty awesome there.
It was unbelievable. And the fact that I kind of left this part out, I forgot. I actually saw the ebook on my phone and tablet before I read the paperback and the hardcover, and that was even kind of cool. But when those paperbacks came in, it's just a totally different feeling.
Yeah, when and this day and time, when you see, I guess, a lot of these kids that have the iPads and their iPhone, whatever social media little thing you have, you don't remember buying the actual books. You pretty much downloaded them all your life, but and that's me. I'm the same way. Just like about a month ago, I was at a store and looking at the magazine rack, and the NFL and college football preview magazines were there, and I said, every year I try to buy them because I just like having it in my hand, and I'm just old like that. And I said, I know football season is coming soon because that's there, and that's one of my things there. When I'm able to buy that, that's a good time. I'll go through that cover to cover, and that's how I was when I was a kid. I'd go through these magazines cover to cover. Now it's so much out there, so much information out there. It's kind of like I miss the old days, and I'd rather have a actual hard copy of it in my hands.
Right. Well, I'm the same way. I am. I mean, and of course Courtney, she has hundreds, probably I was going to say thousands, but hundreds of ebooks.
Right.
And I just, I've tried them, but for me, it's pretty special to hold it, and when it's your own, I can't even describe it. But
definitely.
But to hold a book is just more. I don't know, just more. Really gets me more than anything. But so I will tell you though that, and I know we'll get into this later, but I just found out yesterday that anybody who purchases a hardcover or paperback, I don't know if it's going to last a week or two, whatever, but they'll get a free copy of the ebook as well.
Okay.
So, and that was, they asked me if I wanted to do that, and I was like, well, as a debut novelist, I want as many people to read it as can.
Exactly.
So if you think that's gonna help, then sure, and they said, all right, let's do it. And I said, you got nothing to lose. So I said, okay, that sounds great.
Yeah.
So I mean, I guess at the end of the day, somebody buys a hardcover or a paperback, they typically don't buy the ebook in addition to. So that's pretty neat to have that too. Because for me, sometimes I have to, if I'm reading a book, I'm at an airport. I don't have my hardcover with me. It is kind of nice if I got the ebook as well. I could kind of pick back up there.
That's right. So, have you had any? Or is there any plans for any book signings?
Yeah, so I've got 9 on the schedule.
Wow.
Right now, and my first one is actually this Monday in Richmond County, where I worked for almost 2 years. I really loved Richmond County. For me, Northampton's always going to be home, but it felt like a second home to me. And so my first signing is actually going to be there at the Leeds Library in downtown Rockingham on Monday, July the 15th, 4 to 6. But then I've got next Friday, so a week from tomorrow, I've got my first signing in Roanoke Rapids.
Okay.
And that's going to be at Hockaday General Store Museum on Everett Road, Everett School Road, I think it is, in Roanoke Rapids. And then the next day I've got a morning signing there as well. And my first time in Northampton County is going to be August the 8th. That's a Thursday night. It's presented by the Chamber of Commerce. I'm obviously excited about all of them, but that was the first one I booked.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah, the coming back home, coming back to your hometown, Chamber of Commerce, right there in your hometown with Jackson. So that's gonna have to be one of your one of the big thrills for you there as far as book signings go. I'm sure, and I'm sure I can't imagine the turnout that's going to be there either.
Well, I appreciate that. I hope it's a good turnout. I mean, I hope people will it's a book signing and a social, so I just like to see everybody again.
Yeah.
So I'd love for everybody to come out and have a good time. I know Northampton County Chamber is going to do a good job putting it on. they've been great, by the way. They haven't asked me to do a single thing, but just show up, and they said it's going to be a great time. I even told them, I was like, let's try to figure out a way we can raise money for the chamber. And, Judy Collier, she just said, no. She said, this is going to be about you. And I'm like, I don't really intend for it to be. She said, that's what we're going to do. That just speaks to the volumes of the people in Northampton County. And I just know, it means a lot to me. So I am obviously excited about all of them. But that one, I have to be frank, is pretty special.
All right, I'm sure. So before we get to all the places we can buy it, and I'm going to ask this question. I'm pretty sure you know.
Okay.
Even before we know how much success, which I'm sure this is going to be really successful for you. Any plans or any ideas for a second novel?
Oh yeah, I can answer that already. I already started on it.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I already started. Yeah, and I'm not too deep into it, but it is largely similar themes, totally different story. And if you don't mind, I'll give you and your listeners the very first preview of this publicly. But it's about I'm actually writing. So I wrote A New Requiem from third person, and I'm writing this one from first person. So this one character's perspective, and it's a woman. So that's obviously a task and a challenge in itself, because I'm not. But this woman is named Kay Jordan, and she works for the committee to re-elect the president in 1971. And this, of course, was President Richard Nixon. This was right before the Watergate scandal. And so this story is going to follow her journey, her rise in politics in a time where women really weren't involved in politics as much as they are today, and it really wasn't expected that they would be either. But she's a very strong and independent woman, and so she made a name for herself, and that's why she was able to work for President Nixon. Well, obviously there was a lot going on at that time. Perhaps the biggest political scandal in our nation's history was about to break. And so it's a historical fiction piece about how she ends up being asked to do some things before Watergate that are Watergate-esque, if you will, where she doesn't feel comfortable, and essentially she turns against the president. And because they're trying to cover it up in the first place, they're not going public about her turning against, but they try to retaliate against her. And so it's kind of it's a more thrilling story, I think, than A New Requiem is. And it follows this really action-packed journey of this woman trying to flee trouble after she turns against the president. And so I think it's going to be a neat piece of historical fiction. I've never written historical fiction, but I'm a big history guy. I'm going to take a stab at it. And I'll even give you what I believe is going to be the title of the book. I didn't come up with A New Requiem until about halfway through it.
Right.
But this title, this title of this next book, I believe, is going to be Queen of a Gentleman's Game.
Okay. Wow,
so,
that's pretty
cool title. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I appreciate you giving us a scoop on that. Yeah, that's
your
pretty
first
cool.
one.
All right. So, New Requiem becomes available tomorrow. Tell us, where can we order A New Requiem at?
Yep, so you can order it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. I think right now the best price is on Amazon, so I'll tell you that. You can order on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, wherever major book retailers are and wherever books are sold. I think that most people order on Amazon.
Right.
I will say that. You do get your two-day Prime shipping. If you do, I understand that. And I also believe that for sure is one of the places that you can get the free ebook when you purchase the hardcover and the paperback. And I actually just found out too, the ebook is going to be discounted for the first week at $4.99. So you really can't beat that if you're in the ebook. But yeah, I think most people will probably head to Amazon or Barnes & Noble, and you can always find the links to any other site, including that on my website, which is blancejenkins.com. The letter B, lancejenkins.com.
And these will also be available if we actually, people go to it like I think the local people around here, Barnes & Noble in Greenville. I'm sure they'll be available there too, right?
Yeah, and if they certainly are, and if they're I'm a daily novelist, so I don't know how much they'll keep in inventory. Right. But if they're sold out or whatever and they're gone, they can always order it right there in the store too, and they'll get it to them.
All right, one last thing. Let's remind everybody, and we'll talk about the book signing at the Chamber in Northampton County, because most of the listeners I'm going to get are going to be in Northampton County. Remind us of that date and time again.
Yes, Thursday, August 8th. It's going to start at 6 o'clock p.m. I guess kind of run until, and it's going to be at the Northampton County Visitor Center, which is also the Chamber of Commerce. Right. It's right across from the Bayside on Jefferson Street in Jackson.
All right, so you can go to the book signing and get you something to eat at the Bayside also. So
that's right,
Lance. I
think they'll have some nice wines there.
Oh,
I'm not a wine guy, but if you like wine, I think they're gonna have some that night.
You know, I'll tell you what Jackson really needs. The wine. I'm not a wine guy either. Jackson they need to put a brewery in there. You have some of those craft beers.
Gosh, that'd be great.
There's a place in Ahoskie. We go to Quick Triggers over in Ahoskie. I don't know if you've checked that place out when you were home. Great place, great atmosphere. They have bands there. Some of the best. I don't know if you're a chicken wing guy. Some of the best wings you'll ever have is over there at Quick Triggers.
Oh my!
It's shameless plug for Quick Triggers right now. But Lance, man, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you doing this interview with us today.
I appreciate you.
Proud of you, buddy. You've made one of your goals. A lot of people, especially around this area, a lot of people don't go through with their goals that they have in life like this, and I'm proud to say I'm friends with this guy. This guy has made one of his goals happen, and can't say enough about you, bud. Congratulations, and I wish you the best of luck, bud. I hope the first one is just well, let's go with New York Times bestseller, and then we'll go for number 2, and everybody can say they heard about the second one first here on the Final Score.
They will definitely have to say that, because this was the first place. And I will say, too, I appreciate all those nice things you said. But you mean the world to me, too. I cherish your friendship, and I appreciate you having me on your program.
All right, guys. Check out A New Requiem, available tomorrow. Like you said, Amazon, Barnes & Nobles. Get the ebook or the hard copy, and go check him out at the Chamber of Commerce, August the 8th, 6 o'clock. Chamber of Commerce in Jackson, North Carolina. Like you said, he'll be there from 6 until. Don't show up at 8:30, 9 o'clock expecting him to be there and be. So hopefully there'll be a big enough crowd there that he'll have to stay a while. Now, are you going to be signing there?
Yes,
I'll
be doing a signing. Yep, so you can obviously purchase a book if you don't have one yet there, in both hardcover and paperback. But if you have a book already, whether you've read it and broken it in, or if you hadn't even touched it yet, bring it in and I'll sign it.
Okay. All right, well, that's what we need to know. All right, Lance, I'm going to let you go, get back to writing some more. And I know you're a busy man with the between insurance and writing. I know you're a busy man. So I'm going to let you go. Appreciate you taking time with us today, and that's going to do it for us today on the Final Score. So we'll see you, Lance. Thank you again.
Thank you, Stevie.
All right. That's Lance Jenkins, guys. Check out A New Requiem, available tomorrow.